We've got a great panel for you all about the making of this game, specifically from the narrative direction. So we're going to be talking with a couple of the people that helped to write the dialogue and help tell the story of Star Wars Outlaws. So joining me up on stage is Naveed Kabari. He is the narrative director on Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft Toronto. Welcome. There you go, my friend. And Nikki Foy, who is the lead writer on Star Wars Outlaws, also from Ubisoft Toronto. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
Naveed, why don't we start with you? And I've got a super easy one for you. What was it like to work on a Star Wars project?
Surreal.
Yeah.
I just keep going back to this is surreal. Even the fact that we're talking about it.
It is launch
right
week.
now. Yeah,
It's coming.
It's launch week.
Yes, people are playing it. I'm playing it, and it's so much fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's it's dream come true stuff. I think when it's funny, you hear people talking about Star Wars and when they get to work on it, and there's a little side of you that's like, they're just saying that for the cameras.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's real. Like
Yeah.
when I found out I was working on this, I blasted the score. I got a shawarma and Alibaba's. People here will know. And yeah, ever since then, it's really been a dream.
Awesome. Nikki, how is it to work on a Star Wars project for you?
Yeah, same thing, like crazy. It's like it's a really big responsibility, I think.
Yep.
Like it's something that means so much to so many people, like us included. So I know, like at the beginning, I was very like, oh god. But yeah, we really came at it from like fan perspective. Like we're super fans, so we started just being in the mindset of like, okay, what would we like to see? Like, what's exciting to us?
Yeah.
And then once we kind of put that in our minds of like, oh, okay, this seems easier now. It's like playing fun games with your friends and telling stories. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like a week or so where you're just kind of overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then you just put it on the shelf and it's like, okay, this is a job now.
Yeah.
The work begins.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't write this in my questions, but I think this is we need to do this. There might be a few people out there that would love a recap. What is Star Wars Outlaws? Why don't you tell us what the game is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, forgive me if I sound like a robot here, because I have said this quite a bit, but Star Wars Outlaws is truly the first kind of ever open world action-adventure Star Wars game.
Yep.
And it is set in my favorite period between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And you are following the experience of Kay Bess, who is a thief, a scoundrel, someone who is really just trying to make her way to survive. And you're following her first steps into the underworld. When a job goes wrong, she ends up with a bounty on her back, and in a sort of classic heist sense, she's going to pull out the massive heist to secure her freedom.
One of the things that I'm really enjoying about playing the game is that you feel like a regular person in this fantastical world, this galaxy, where lots of stuff is going wrong, and you have to survive that. Because usually we're playing as Jedi Knights, or we're part of a big army or something, but this is like, how am I going to survive all of this stuff? Must be fun.
Yeah, it's great. I think that was like the thing that was most exciting to me about coming onto this project was like, all I knew was that it was a Star Wars project when I was like submitting like samples and stuff and interviewing. And I was like, I don't care what it is, like if it's Star Wars, I want to work on it, like that's a dream. And then when I heard the pitch, it was like really early, I was like, because like, besides the time and place, it's like, oh man, that's really what I want to see. Like even just as a fan playing it, I would want to have that. Like I love being a Jedi. I love like watching an Imperial story, but this like untapped, just like regular person who doesn't care about like the rebellion, about the war, like she's just living in this galaxy that like we all know so well and care so much about that it was a really fun new thing. From the beginning it was like that's the nugget that like really was exciting. You know?
Awesome. Well, you have collaborators all over the world to make this game. It's being led by Ubisoft Massive in, is it Malmo?
Yes,
Malmo,
Malmo,
Sweden.
Sweden. Yeah.
How do you manage that? How do you sort of delineate the work and get it to all the studios and get all of it?
A lot of early morning meetings.
Yeah.
That time zone is special.
I don't think anyone wants to work in games to wake up at like 7 a.m. I was like, sweet, I'll get up at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
every day for the rest of my life. No.
No.
Yeah.
Not when the lead is in Sweden.
Yeah.
My wife Kate knows this, and I am definitely not a morning person, but tried to turn into one. But no, that's kind of one of the beautiful things about working at Ubisoft, though, is we have studios all over the world.
Yes.
So you're quite used to it, and we had wildlife being built in Shanghai, for example. We had arcade games that are in the open world.
You can play arcade games in Star Wars Outlaws. There's an arcade, and it's so freaking
It's super fun. And if you like those retro games that came out in the 80s,
Yes.
they're totally inspired by that, like in a aesthetic sense. But that was done in Paris. So it was really, I think at any point in time during the day, someone was working on this game.
Yes.
And it just speaks to the people that worked on it. Like everyone was super patient, super kind. And I think when the opportunity came up, we have such an amazing group of folks in Toronto that are so talented.
Yes.
That Massive, we had some awesome story people in Massive as well, but they wanted to seize on that talent that we have in Toronto. And
Well,
so,
when you have an open world,
Absolutely.
you've got a lot of world to write.
yeah, exactly. There's a lot to write. So it was really truly a collaborative effort.
Amazing. Well, what made you want to make video games, Nikki? What was it about the artistry of this medium that drew you to it?
Yeah, I've always wanted to write for video games. When I was a kid, I don't know how old, young, my brother put this SNES emulator on our computer, and it felt magical to me because I would just open it and then click a file name that was Z2K whatever, click it and not have any idea what was gonna happen, and then Chrono Trigger would launch, and I'd be like, what the hell is this? And I think that was so magical to me, and it felt very special. It felt oh, the only people in the world that know about this is because it was after the SNES, during that era, that was GameCube era when I was doing that, and it felt oh, my friends don't know about this. This feels like a very special secret that me and my brother have, that we play all these amazing games. And yeah, from there I just always was super into games. And when I was probably 14 or 15, I remember asking my brother who writes these? There's stories, who gets to write these? And he was oh, I think it's the same people that write movies. And I was oh man, that sounds hard. So then I started writing movies. I started training to become a screenwriter. I went to university for that. Just always was writing everything, with my friends in my spare time, pilots, comics, prose, anything. And yeah, I always wanted games to be the thing. So anytime I saw a games opportunity come up anywhere, I was just always chase it down. And then yeah, finally it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think I have a bit of a similar story. I never considered writing a game as it was a job,
Right.
right? And so, but I think the first time I was aware of narrative was Monkey Island 2.
Yes.
And that was the game that I was oh my God, this is the funniest thing. This is better than any movie, But I was I was writing screenplays. My brother was an animator, and he would always have me tag along to story rooms and things like that, which was wild. But I was really just thinking, okay, yeah, maybe I'll go into screenwriting. And then a job opened up at this indie studio for a show called Lost Girl. If you remember that, they had an interactive motion comic that I started writing for. And then when I started that, it was oh, they're gonna do a D&D game next. And they need a writer. I'm oh, I could do that. And then you realize, you look at the credits, and it's like, oh yeah, people are writing these things, and then it just sort of snowballed from there. So I think you have to have that deep-seated passion for games, I think, but once you get in, it's really exciting.
I think it's later on in my questions here, but it dovetails right into this. But what is the most surprising thing about writing for video games that people may not fully comprehend?
I have a list of 3 things.
Yeah, let's hear
I
it.
thought about this for so long.
Yeah.
Okay, the first one is you can't control when people are seeing things, especially in an open world game. In a script or in a novel, almost anything else, you can control the emotional beats that people are experiencing your story perfectly. You curate all that.
Right.
In games, especially open world games, not the case at all. You could stumble into a really, a scene that we labored over and thought that players would do this specific path, and it could be on the tail end of I'm just trying to gather 8 fruits. I'm not, so that's super tricky. It's an adjustment for a lot of writers that aren't used to working in that. The other one is, I think people often imagine writing as a very solo sport, that you're alone in your room, typing on a computer. It's not at all. It's super collaborative, especially when you work on something big. It's really you need other people to be reading your work and giving you feedback, and especially in games, it's you are meshing with so many other people, that's a really key component is being cool with each other and knowing when to let go of ideas and offer them. Mm-hmm. And the last one is, in other things, often when you write the script, your part is done, and now it's being taken, and someone else is going to implement it or work on it, shoot it. In games, it's not the case. You are iterating on your writing until it ships. You are constantly rewriting and moving things around. And when the script is done, that's part 1. Done.
Yeah. But I think just to hammer that point home, it's interesting because you really have to lose all that preciousness immediately.
Right.
That was the first thing when I started on, we were talking about this on Splinter Cell Blacklist, I was not used to the amount of feedback that I was going to get. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're working on a film or you're working in TV, it'll be other writers, right? But in games, you're opening it up to level designers, bus designers, other directors, artists. Yeah. So that preciousness, and I think it's actually a good thing, is really ground out of you, right? Yeah. And you really just start thinking about how good can I make this?
And ultimately the player as well, right? Because Absolutely. They have that skip button always at the ready. And I bet you must have to battle that skip button in a way sometimes.
Yeah, I guess. But I always think about it, we talk about it a lot. If people don't want to watch it, they don't have to watch it. I think there's a lot of I get it. The impulse to be please watch our cinematics. Yeah, we work super hard on them for sure, but also we're creating something that's entertaining to people, and I think battling the skip button, but we try at least. I mean, we'll see when it comes. But we try to iterate the beats of our story throughout, so that if that does happen, or if your dog was throwing up and you had to leave to deal with that, you won't be totally lost. Yeah.
It's funny because you want to know a secret?
Yeah.
We know that people skip. Yeah. And you develop sort of an arsenal of tricks that they'll still observe the story, right? Whether it's in the environmental storytelling, whether it's in the VO while you're playing gameplay, you're absorbing a lot of the content we're writing, whether you want to or not.
Well, what I noticed with the cutscenes in Outlaws that I've seen so far is that they're brief, and they get right to the point, and they're very much in keeping with the Star Wars stories that we see. So you don't want to skip them. We actually did a full analysis of the original trilogy to see how long, on average, are the scenes that it came out to 90 seconds. Wild.
It's crazy. You'll remember these epic scenes. Where you're it was so long and amazing and beautiful. And it's no man, that was a minute 30.
Lucas kept it going, right?
So we really didn't want to linger without you having the sticks in your hands.
Totally. Okay, well, how did the story for Outlaws start? Was it initiated by a small team, one person, a collection of people from Lucasfilm? Was Ubisoft Toronto and Massive working on it right from the very beginning? Take us into the early days of conceptualizing the story.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
It actually began, Ubisoft Massive's, managing director at the time, David Hofeld, met with, some folks from Disney and Lucasfilm, and they're like, we should do something. They were really excited about The Division as well.
Yeah, awesome game, The Division.
Yeah, one of my proudest to be on. And the team at Massive came with a pitch. What they knew they wanted to do is, we're not really looking at the Jedi side of things. We want to look at the scoundrel fantasy. We want the blaster on the hip. We want, that kind of personality. And so they went to Lucasfilm with that. And Lucasfilm actually suggested, there's this period between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, this like 1 year gap where the Empire's distracted and you could really do an underworld story, and the team ran out of there like they just stole something. Like, don't change your mind. And that's sort of where the genesis began. And I was brought in quite early, and we built the team. Really, it wasn't long after that. So it's been a real collaboration with Massive ever since. Yeah.
What's the makeup of the narrative team? How much of it is in Toronto? How much of it is in Massive?
Most of it is in Toronto. So go Toronto.
That's awesome.
We have multiple writers in Toronto and narrative designers, and then we have a few folks in Massive, a few folks in Paris as well, and I have to shout out John Bjorling, who in Massive. This guy is like the oracle of Star Wars. He reads the stuff that I would never even have a chance to read.
Yeah. He remembers.
And he remembers
everything. Yeah.
So he's not here, but John, wherever you are, thank
Hopefully
you.
not up. You looked up.
He's here. He's okay. He's doing fine.
He's sort of like a holocron.
Yeah, he's 100%
of Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Now, are you also working with Lucasfilm Games and their narrative teams?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, we had like a saying, was like, if you think you know Star Wars, you don't know Star Wars until you talk to Lucasfilm. And they have, several folks in their kind of a story group that we're meeting with all the time. And they're great. They're always pushing us to move forward.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I think with them, the thing that was super helpful and encouraging was like, if we went to them with an idea, it would always be like, yes, and like, well, that sounds great. What if you did this? It's like, what a good idea. And if we couldn't do something, they always had like a really good suggestion for instead. It wasn't like, I think there's a, a perception that like people are just saying no to things in situations like that. It's not true at all. Like, it's very much like as excited, like we're all working together. It's super nice, yeah.
That's awesome. There's a linear progression to the scope of the narrative in the game, but of course there's tons of winding paths and lots of different branches that take you off in different directions. How do you make sure that all of that is paid off and you hit the notes that you're trying to hit? Nikki?
Yeah, we knew like we wanted to have a story in Outlaws that was like part of the Star Wars galaxy. Like, there is a definitive arc and character and growth, but we really wanted like the how of it to be what changes. So in terms of like aligning all that stuff, we have a really great team of like narrative designers, and everyone was on the same page from the beginning of like, okay, here's the cool overarching story. We know we want a heist. We want Kate to recruit the people for the heist. That is going to be how they pull it off, and like what happens along the way is going to depend on whether the player is more interested in working with Hutts or Pikes or Crimson Dawn or none.
Yes.
What do they want to do in the underworld? Who are they interested in like betraying, allying with, stealing from? So that was always kind of our mentality. Like, it wasn't, I think a lot of times in games like this, you come to it later, but it was like from the beginning for us, which is super helpful. So we always had that formula going for us.
Yeah, and I think, I like to tell people, you would think maybe as the narrative folks, it's like, oh, you gotta play the main campaign beginning to end.
Yeah.
And it's actually both. I think that, the secret sauce of this game is, yes, there's a journey for Kay, but don't ignore the open world, because a lot of intention has been put into that, a lot of storytelling. Actually, one of the writers, Ashley's here somewhere, who spent a good amount of time on that. Thank you, Ashley. And she and us, we really wanted you to be encouraged to go off the beaten path.
Right.
That's the beauty of this game. That's the game we've all sort of been hoping for.
Yes.
Is that you get to step into Star Wars, not necessarily follow this one continuous journey.
Well, as a player, that's a couple of the things that I love the most about this experience so far. I like that you're choosing these different criminal factions, and you can sort of go up in their favor or lower in their favor, and they'll chase after you and shoot after you. And you're pitting them against each other. You're always sort of out for yourself in the game. I think that's great. But the density of the world, I've been saying this since my first hands-on with it, it feels like you're walking around inside the sets of the Star Wars shows, like they give us a sense of these things with the volumes and all the actors and stuff that they put together. But in your game, it's like we're living on that planet.
Yeah, and that is the dream. Like from when we started, like one of the pillars was step into Star Wars.
That's
right.
great.
And a big shout out to the world teams, the art teams, and even in meetings with Lucasfilm, down to, I remember sitting in a meeting where there was a half-hour tangent just about the pillbox lights that you find in an Imperial compound, those little white strip lights, and we were talking about it for half an hour. And I was like, okay, I think I need a nap, but this is still how detailed we're gonna get.
Remember the cups?
Yeah,
there was the design of the cups we were gonna have in the cantina, kept changing, and everyone kept iterating on it, worrying about it, and then they were all the same cup, and then everyone was crazy about that. It was months of cups.
Yeah, lots of cup discussion.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have a question in here, I don't know where it is on my list here, but I want to talk about the writing for this game specifically. Is it, as part of the group coming together to work on it, are you writing the environments as well? Are you writing, where props are placed in the world and what characters are wearing, and then artists take that and conceptualize it, and then they get modeled? How does that work?
It's really a hand-in-hand thing. Generally, we will all come together and present the feelings that we want to convey. Hey, here's the tone of this quest. Here's the story we want to tell in this quest. If someone was oh, what do you want them to wear? To me, I would be Star Wars stuff. I don't know. So thank God artists are there to so I can say oh, this is supposed to be a thug. Okay, great. And then they'll show us something and be this is a thug, and we'll be yay.
And then do you take that and then write that into the scripts based on their illustration?
Not necessarily in terms like I was saying before, how everything is always iterative.
Yeah.
It's I don't think I would ever add a line of action that says a thug wearing this coat shows up. It's because we're all so on the same page. A script is really supposed to be a blueprint. So once it's out of that blueprint stage and artists are putting art to it, we don't go back and change things. It's we're all on the same page the whole time. So it's really just about communication amongst each other.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. One of the biggest things I've learned in game development is you don't want to be too restrictive with the narrative process. Right. Right. And so a lot of the big pieces, right? Okay, KVS, ND5, the droid, who's the coolest. We're gonna get descriptive on that stuff. We're gonna have opinions. We're gonna have, we're gonna be very, very involved. But then as you go through production, you want to give freedom to the artists and the character concept folks, and they'll check in. They'll be like you said, what do you think? Does this fit? And all that. But the moment you start dictating, then you're actually hampering, the feedback loop that you have. Right. And you're going to disengage folks, and that's something we didn't.
Yeah, the work gets worse if someone is trying to because that's a really great thing about working in something so collaboratively is like, oh, all these experts are coming together, so like let experts be experts, right? Like,
Right. And so when you start working with the voice actors, Humberly Gonzalez, I believe,
Yep.
and D. Bradley Baker, who plays Nix, the little character
Yeah.
that Nikki has got
Our
right
guy.
there.
You know, Dee.
Yeah. They're not necessarily just looking at scripts and trying to imagine it all. They actually have character models and some renderings and some.
Yeah. I mean, well, when you're shooting at the beginning,
Yeah.
it's a lot of imagination.
Is it?
Because we were shooting for years.
Yeah.
And so I still remember, and Humberly and I have talked about this, where it's like the first time they heard Nix,
Yeah.
like D. Bradley Baker chirping, like the studio shut down. It's like, oh, okay, and so you sort of, it's a real balance, tricky balance of like using your imagination, but being flexible enough that when things start to come online,
Yeah.
you can adapt to it.
Cool.
But yeah, if we had a character model or concept, like it informs the performance so much.
Awesome. Nikki, who are some of your inspirations in game storytelling?
Ooh, there's a lot. It's a big list. I think like when I think about being younger, and like Amy Hennig was the first name I knew
Yes.
as like someone who wrote games.
Uncharted.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, she's the goat. So that was like, oh, this is a job, and I think too like, oh man, like I loved the Uncharted games when I was younger. I still do, but like being like, oh, someone like me wrote that. That's sweet. Tim Schafer, like Psychonauts was very informative
So
to me.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, just in terms of like, oh, games can do this, the story, that's huge. Right now, the like Larian team is very inspiring to me.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3, every time I look at it, I'm like mind blown. But I think honestly, like just the old style of game storytelling, like the feeling I had playing Secret of Mana 2, which is a deep cut maybe, but that was the first game I ever played where, depending on the characters you picked on the main screen, you'd have a different beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the combination of them, you would play different stories. And I just played through every single combination I could, and it felt so magical to me from a storytelling perspective.
Right.
So I think I always try to think about that feeling I had when I was a kid playing games like that.
Awesome. What about you, Naveed?
Oh, you have a pretty good list there. I think Ron Gilbert was, I mentioned Monkey Island, was one of the big ones starting out.
Yeah.
But to be honest, and then obviously Amy Hennig, Uncharted, and all of that. I also am trying to actively look outside of games too.
Sure.
And this might sound random, but going to an opera, going to a ballet, because you sort of never know who's gonna inspire you.
Right.
And the amount of times, I've been in a meeting and I pulled something from that I saw in a theater show, and actually we were doing casting for this in New York. I was there for casting, and I was like, I'm here for one night. I'm gonna go to Broadway and see what I can see.
Of course,
And I just picked a Mammoth play. I didn't even know anything about it. And I walked in, and it just happened to be Lawrence Fishburne on stage doing Mammoth.
Yeah.
And it completely informed me in how I think about NB5. So it's one of those things where you're constantly sort of absorbing, I think, in our job.
Oh yeah, totally. And some of the references that we'll pull out in writers' rooms to get each other on the same page are insane. It'll be like, does anyone remember this B movie from 1997? And you'll be like, actually, yeah. Okay, remember that subplot? It's now we're all on the same page. So
Kindred spirits.
Yeah, totally.
You bring these up, and I think about Final Fantasy 3 or 6 if you're in Japan, and there was a big opera scene in that game, and I can directly point to that, feeling my mind just explode with games are so much more than we think they are.
Absolutely.
And that led to Electric Playground. That led to me pitching the TV show. Okay, well, what should people that want to write for games, what should they be playing and what should they be reading?
I like what you said about not limiting yourself. To me, I think that I spent a lot of time in my life consuming things I hated because I thought they were good. And I think that that was valuable in its own way, but I think in terms of like advice, I think it's better to just consume things that you love, because like if you are pushing yourself to make things and write things that you don't love, then you're just gonna do that your whole life. You're gonna be stuck writing things you don't care about, because once you start down that path, that's what you have experience in, that's what you've practiced.
Right.
To me, like, I've always liked things, like when I was in film school, I would try to get into like a Godard type thing, and I just couldn't. I remember, like, I like Blade, I like The Mummy, you know, like, I like movies like that. Yeah.
Classic.
Mummy.
Yeah. So to me, like, just consuming those things and really chasing down the things that you love and recognizing what they are. And I think this is like a Alan Moore advice, which I think is a really good advice for some reason, which is that like you should consume things that are bad also. Because when you consume things that are bad, one, you can see like, oh, these are pitfalls I should avoid. But two, like, it's kind of encouraging. You can be like, oh, I can do that, that's fine. So I think consuming stuff that's like mid and bad is also really good.
Yeah, and I think there's something to that. I really like what you said about the, pursue the things that you love. And that's the beauty of doing like story rooms that we did on this game, as well as there's gonna be someone who you can play off, and that clash of opinions is gonna make something better. But when I was, maybe to twist the question a little bit, what I always try to tell folks trying to write games and get into games is really just trying to get close to developing something interactive. Try not to just focus on screenplays. If you truly love writing or you want to write for games, that means you're going to want to write something interactive. So try and there's so many tools like Twine and everything. Do a game jam. Just meet 2 or 3 friends. There's so many tools out there that when we get a CD or a portfolio of samples and they have something you can actually play, as rudimentary as it is, it makes it totally makes a difference.
And D&D modules also.
Yeah,
Reading a D&D
yeah,
module is like the best.
Yeah.
Oh, look at all the stuff they thought about.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings me to my next question, because when you're talking about D&D modules and campaigns and things like that, you're also thinking about how the gameplay comes into it and the choice that you're giving back to the player to impact the play. How much of Outlaws is impacted as story-wise, is impacted as mechanics start to come online, as sort of different elements of play start to take shape and take form, and some may have to be cut out because they aren't working.
I mean, that's sort of the beautiful thing about game development, especially when you're working on a game this big, is you'll have those sort of fun surprises of like, oh, now you can do this, or you can rappel up.
You can lockpick now.
You can lockpick. And it is like this loop again, with the lockpicking, which is sort of like a rhythm game.
Yeah.
And when that came
Man, I
online,
suck at that.
oh,
It's so hard.
It's 50-50. People either
Sometimes when we were doing something and a lot of people come up and now it's playing and we're all like, all right, settle in.
I don't know about that. But the basic thing is like, you want to be prepared for that. You want to make sure that you're adapting to what's coming, and because when you're writing a bark set, for example, you're gonna have to be ready to have 1,000 different variations anyway.
Barks, by the way.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Barks are like when you interact with a character, like an NPC, and depending on how you interact with them, they can say like a million different things. You shoot at them, what are they going to say? You hit them with your speeder. If they think you're around, the real, what was that? Must have been the wind. Those are barks.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that it just informs the process, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, and keep you on your toes too. What's the relationship between KFS and Nyx? Can you take us into that?
Yeah, they're family, really.
How much time do you have?
Yeah. Settle in. No. Yeah, Kay and Nyx are family. Like, Kay, it's great because we wanted this character who's like a scoundrel, morally gray, moving to the underworld. Nyx is like our cheat code into Kay's heart. because she doesn't show her emotions. She's very like, pretends that nothing's wrong. But Nyx is like at once a mirror of like, if he's scared, it makes the situation seem scarier. We don't have to rely on Kay being like, she can still be cool, calm, and collected. But also like Kay acting, or Kay doesn't trust anyone, and she doesn't care about anyone, except Nyx, and it's like, that's a huge accept. It's like knowing that this character has this little companion that she cares so much about immediately makes you know she's like a good person at her core.
Yeah.
It's a really, really nice tool to have as a writer, where it's like, Kay can be a little bit like mean in this scene because Nyx is with her, and like anyone who has a little Nyx and takes care of him like she does isn't a terrible person. Yeah.
I think as well, like when we were in the story room, whenever we were stuck, inevitably someone would ask, what is Nyx doing right now?
Yeah.
It was like the ultimate unblocker.
Yeah, Nyx is kind of like Samus Aran's abilities in a way,
Totally.
to get you out of things.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's like an extension of Kay's arm. We always talk about it that way of it's funny, I remember, this is so random, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but like I saw a podcast about the Fast and Furious movies where they were talking about how the cars are just extensions of their arms.
Yeah.
And it's like Nyx is a little bit of that, like he is his own person, but he's also an extension of you, so.
Totally.
That's awesome. What was your favorite Star Wars movie and why?
I don't know why I was surprised by that. Empire Strikes Back. It's funny because we were walking the floor yesterday, and thank you, Nikki and Brendan, wherever Brendan is.
He's not dead either.
He's not dead either. Oh my God. But we were walking the floor, and we stopped that there's like a poster place, and they all helped me find my long-wanted Empire Strikes Back.
Wanted to give up so many times.
But they were very sweet. But that movie for me, it has everything. It's the stakes of the characters are personal, but also affecting the galaxy. The pace of the film is perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little bit of a blueprint for us in a way where, yes, there are these galaxy-changing things happening, but if I'm not relating to this character, then what's the point?
Yeah, who cares, yeah.
And I was talking to someone about this. The most Star Wars moment for me is in Empire Strikes Back, is the moment you realize that Yoda is the Jedi Master that Luke has to follow.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that Master could be anybody.
Yeah.
Right? And that's Star Wars to me in a nutshell, right? So that would be me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's like ditto. I watched it last night, actually, Empire. But I think that 100%. I cannot not say like the first half of Jedi is like what, like if I think about, I want to watch Star Wars, like I'm imagining Jabba's palace, So I think that, I mean, I like the whole movie, but that to me is like, besides Empire, to say something different than what just so I'm not like, that stuff to me is like so core to like my understanding and idea of the brand,
Awesome. Well, let's talk about that understanding of the brand. What did you learn about Star Wars on Star Wars Outlaws?
Oh my god, so much stuff. Like, it's like we use that. It's like, oh, you think you know Star Wars? It's like, it's like annoying the amount of stuff I know now. Or like I said, I was watching Empire last night, like with my partner, my friend, and I was like, oh, there's Minox on the ship, and like I said, brother, whatever. And they're like, shut up! like you don't even know what these are called. And it's like, no, I do though. I really do, and I care. So if you're ever a game writer and you're writing like descriptions of items, you are gonna learn every single thing about everything. I learned a lot about repulsors. Like, didn't know that. Yeah.
Naveed, how about yourself?
It's interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot now that we're coming closer to shipping.
Yeah.
Actually, we're there.
Yeah.
Weird thing to say. I think, especially with, and not to get heavy, but like with everything that's happened with the pandemic, with everything that's happening in the world, like Star Wars is just such pure heart and joy that I just felt very lucky to be involved in it. And I think as a team, we were always cognizant of the fact that, yes, this is an underworld story. Yes, we're exploring morally gray areas, but, you know, let's bring some heart, even if it's a villain, even if it's a hero, like, let's find moments of connection and relatedness. And that's probably what I realized is Star Wars is, at its best, is kind of the perfect vehicle for that.
Amazing. Well, Star Wars Outlaws is out this week. Let's give it up for our panelists.